press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
Hi students, welcome to your English class. Today we are going to deal with Frederick Douglass, a piece of literature very interesting for all the slavery that has happened from the American Africans who were there. A fight between the whites and the blacks. My question to you is, if you were discriminated on the basis of your color and put into slavery, made to work tirelessly, brought away from your parents, taken away from your parents, especially your mother, and not given any parental touch, left all alone somewhere working, what would be your condition? What would happen to you? You and me alike wouldn't have been able to accept that reality, or in a way we would have felt disgusted. But here is a man, Frederick Douglass for us, who narrates his own life, who gives us details of his life, in the values that they taught, or in the frustrations that he had. He shares it out to all the people that are there. But before, now this is an excerpt from Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. So that's what I've written on the board, Frederick Douglass. This is an excerpt, that is a short piece. Now if there is a big book, you take one entire passage or one topic out of it, that is an excerpt. So this is an excerpt from the Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. So a little short piece for you which is given, which you have to know in order to understand this. Understand just a general view of the African American slavery that was there, the discrimination based on color and how the black people were treated. Now here, you may have heard of a lot of in your previous years or in your schools when you studied about, when you studied social and other things, you may have come across how people were into slavery and what kind of tragedies they did, especially the black room tragedy that was there, and few other things that made people feel inferior to what they were than the whites. Whites considered themselves very superior, isn't it? The blacks were inferior. They were asked to work in the fields and plantations of the whites, and whites were the masters, whereas these were somebody who were downtrodden. They were not given the respect, they were not given that value of life. Here Frederick Douglass narrates to us or shares with us his experience of how he was being how he had been treated and how his experience has been of being a slave trade or into slavery or in this kind of a black and white nature. So here before that, before we enter into a pretext or a pre-reading that is there and then get into the main part of this narrative, I want you to know certain things what happened at that time. See, there was something known as this Emancipation Proclamation that was issued on the 1st of January 1863 by the President then Abraham Lincoln. I suppose you all have heard this name Abraham Lincoln, and he gave this act of Emancipation Proclamation Act on one basic feature, that was to free the black slaves. The black slaves were burdened. The black slaves were not given their responsibility or their dignity or their value of life, and that's how they wanted to bring in this act. Now, this Emancipation Proclamation Act was given when they entered into something called as a bloody civil war. In the 3rd year of the Civil War, this was given. Now, in that he declared, saying that all persons held as slaves within the rebellions, within the rebellious states are henceforth or henceforward shall be free. I read it again to you. He declared that all the persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are and henceforward shall be free. So all these black people who were considered to be slaves or who were bound into slavery are henceforth free after this proclamation act that was given. What is proclamation? You are saying something. I proclaim to you that you are my people, I am yours, something like that. I am saying something which is very dignified and has a lot of respect to it. Now after that, see, it's not only Abraham Lincoln who worked for this, but there were a lot of people. Now if you have heard of the name Rosa Parks, she refused to give her seat on the bus. When the person asked, as soon as a white man approached, she was asked to get up and give her seat, but she refused. So that led to a movement, and that led one of the ways of having respect to the blacks. So a lot of things have happened. Another figure into this is Martin Luther King Jr. He has been of a tremendous help to these blacks. Now he fought this, or he fought for this civil rights movement, American civil rights movement that was happening between 1929 to 1968. What did he have? He fought tirelessly for these people, whatever it is. Now I want you to, and I want you to do this. Come what may, you must do and watch this movie Selma, okay, S-E-L-M-A 2014, Selma. This is about Martin Luther and how he fought for the blacks. You must watch it, and it is not a request, it is something that you must do, because you can understand this lesson even better if you watch what Martin Luther did for the blacks. So it's Selma, okay, S-E-L-M-A. I have watched it, it's very beautiful. It may get boring with time, but I want you to watch it. Selma 2014. So in the civil rights movement, he fought for these African Americans and the slaves that they were. He didn't want them to work like that in somebody else's plantations. He didn't want them to work like where they have no respect and dignity. He didn't want people like that. But what did he want? He wanted people who were to be free, who had dignity, who had their responsibilities right, and who had their own respect. So he also fought for all these victims who were into this kind of an injustice, and led to something called as a peaceful protest. So watch this movie, you will figure out what I am trying to tell you, and exactly given. I have watched it, that's why I am telling you, it is exactly given, it's exactly told, and it's beautifully presented. So I want you to watch it. Alright, now what made him very powerful at that time was his speech, I have a dream. Okay, I would like to read a few lines from his speech for you, Martin Luther King Jr. Now he begins like this, it begins like this, and then I'll skip several sentences and go forward. It's a long speech, you can take time and read it. I'm happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration of freedom in the history of our nation. This is how he begins it. So he says, 50 years ago, an American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came to us as a beacon, a light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of the withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. What came as a long night of their captivity? The Emancipation Proclamation Act. Okay? But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the mantles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. So you can read further. I'm going to skip and then I'll read from what he says. He has a dream. I have a dream is the name. I have a dream that one day nation will rise up and live out to the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of the former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will able to be sit down together at the table of brotherhood. What does he say? Sons of slaves and sons of slave owners will sit at one table feeling what? Brotherhood feelings. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. Okay? I have a dream that my 4 little children one day will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of the skin but the content of their character. Okay, there is so much I have a dream, you can read it for yourself. These are certain things that I highlighted for you. What changed their life? This Emancipation Proclamation Act is what changed their lives. What does he say? I have a dream that the sons of my slaves and sons of my former slave owners will sit together at the same dining table and eat, will share brotherhood feelings. A city which has injustice, let it come down, let it have peace, okay? And let a day come where we are not judged by the skin of our color, but the content of our character. That's always said, isn't it? Character speaks for itself. However you are, however you dress, however you eat, whatever your lifestyle is, your character will speak for you. And character never lies. So, whatever it is, in one way or the other, he wanted something of peace, not to discriminate, saying that they're blacks, no, not blacks. Be equal, because God created everybody equal. Then why are people discriminating? Okay? So, equality, not to judge them by color, but to judge them by their heart, but to judge them by their character. Why do we say this characterless? Why do we term some person as has no certain values, has no certain character? Why? Why are you focusing on character? Because character is what takes you a long way to go. Character is what keeps you intact. I told you, right? Whatever you do, your character will speak for yourself. It's like some silent medicine that is there. People can make out whatever or however you are, people can judge your character. Some things are hidden. Hidden things also come out in the form of character. Alright, now this is in page 88. A narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave, Frederick Douglass. So we are going to read an excerpt from this narrative. He has narrated his story for us. He has given us this piece of literature that's given in your textbook is a very small piece, and it will at least give you an idea of how people were treated, how he himself, Frederick Douglass, was treated. Okay, now there is a little something called as a pretext. That is an introductory or a background story of what before we go to the main story. So follow your copies on page 88. Let's begin. Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was born in slavery as Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey near Easton in Talbot County, Maryland. 1 mark question, please underline. Frederick Douglass, what was his earlier name? Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey. Where was he born? Easton in Talbot County, Maryland. He was not sure of the exact year of his birth, but he knew that it was 1817 or 1818. So do you all remember your birthdays? We do, isn't it? We always wait for that one day of the year to celebrate our birthdays because we are very happy on that day. Everybody is happy, isn't it? We expect wishes to come. We expect somebody to bring a cake for us. We cut our cakes. We're very happy. But this poor fellow, he didn't know when he was born. He didn't know the exact year of his birth. So he is just assuming maybe 1817 or 1818. As a young boy, he was sent to Baltimore to be a house servant where he learned to read and write with the assistance of his master's wife. So what happened here? When he was a young boy, very small, he was sent where? Underline, Baltimore to where? To a house servant, to be a house servant, like a maid, to be in terms of girls, to be a house servant, to assist people in the house there. What did he do there? Through his master's wife, okay, his masters who had employed him, through his wife he learned how to read and write. In 1838, he escaped from slavery and went to New York City, where he married Anne Murray, a free colored woman whom he had met in Baltimore. Now, after he had gained a little bit of knowledge, in 1813, he wanted to escape from this kind of a slavery. So what did he do? He went to New York City and married Anna Murray, okay? Anna Murray, a free colored woman. She was neither black, neither white. Not in any category, you see. She was neither white nor black, a free colored woman whom he had met in Baltimore. So he had met Anna Murray there. Anna Murray, you please underline, Anna Murray there, and they got married where? In New York City. Soon thereafter, he changed his name to Frederick Douglass. So what was his earlier name? Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey. So he kept the first name Frederick, but Augustus Washington Bailey was deleted and he took another name, that is Douglass. In 1841, he addressed a convention at the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society in Nantucket, and so greatly impressed the group that they immediately employed him as an agent. Alright, so he went in 1841 to Massachusetts, and Anti-Slavery Society was there, who were against this kind of slavery, okay, at Nantucket. And then those people who were there at that convention, they were deeply impressed by what this man had to do, and they employed him as an agent there. He was such an impressive orator that numerous persons doubted if he had ever been a slave, so he wrote the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. Now, do you know why did he write? Because a lot of people doubted whether he was a slave or really did he be into slavery. He was an impressive orator who was very good at public speaking, who is good at like fluency of language, or who is good at no stage fear or something like that. They are very good, they have a hold on language and they can speak for 1 or 2 hours at a stretch because of the hold on language. So people who have good speaking skills are good orators also, orator. So when he was a good orator, what did they doubt? Whether he has been into slavery or was he a really slave? So that's what made him write this narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. During the Civil War, he assisted in the recruiting of colored men for the 54th and 55th Massachusetts regiments and consistently argued for the emancipation of slaves. Alright, now 54th and 55th regiments were happening in Massachusetts, and they had to recruit these colored men, okay, black men that was there. And he consistently argued for this kind of a right that they wanted of the slaves, to be free, to have dignity, to have respect. After the war, he was active in securing and protecting the rights of the free men. So after the war happened, after the Civil War went on and finished off, he went on to assist and protect the rights of these men who had come out of slavery. In the later years, at different times, he was the secretary of the Santo Domingo Commission, Marshal and Recorder of Deeds of the District of Columbia, and United States Minister to Haiti. So what is happening here? After a few years, he was appointed as the secretary of the Santo Domingo Commission and marshal and recorder. Recorder is a government office a person holds who maintains documents. Recorder of deeds of the District of Columbia and United States Minister to Haiti. So he was appointed in various posts like this. His other autobiographical work are My Bondage and My Freedom and The Life and the Times of Frederick Douglass, published in 1855 and 1881 respectively. He died in 1895. Okay, so you must remember the other autobiographical works. This is also one among them. What are they? My Bondage and My Freedom and The Life and Times of Frederick Douglass. Read at least one. This if you read, well and good. It must be has a lot of pages. If you have a lot of patience and if you like reading, I suggest you please read. For those who are not interested in reading, please watch some movie or some documentary. Still not interested, then I think at least read some essay somewhere on colored people, or at least listen to somebody who talks about it. Okay. So finally he dies in 1895. Moving on, this was a pretext, an introductory part to what's going to happen or what happened in his life. A small introduction. We'll move on. Page 89, follow your copies as I read. I was born in Tucao in Hillsborough and about 12 miles from Easton in Talbot County, Maryland. So he was born away 12 miles away from Maryland in where underline Tucao near Hillsborough, and that was away from Easton. I have no accurate knowledge of my age, never having seen any authentic record containing it. So he doesn't know his age absolutely because he doesn't have any record for it. He says, isn't it 1817 or 1818? I'm not sure. No records absolutely. We have the chance of seeing a birth certificate, isn't it? Wherever you were born, the corporation issues a birth certificate for you. The hospital also records it. So you know when you were born, what time you were born, which date, everything you know. But Frederick Douglass didn't even have any idea because no records at all. By far the larger part of the slaves know as little of their ages as horses know of theirs, and it is the wish of the most of the masters within my knowledge to keep their slaves thus ignorant. So now he is making a comparison. I want you to understand this comparison first. All these slaves who are there, they know little of their age. That is, most of the slaves don't have any knowledge of their age. Just like the horses don't know their ages. So comparison between slaves not knowing their age to horses not knowing their age. Okay? And it is the wish of all their masters where they go into slavery, isn't it? They have masters. So it is the wish of all the masters that the slaves shouldn't know about their ages, and that is why they ignore these slaves whenever they would like to know about their date of birth or whenever they ask of their age. So they are kept in ignorance. They are kept away from knowing their age or date of birth. I do not remember to have ever met a slave who could tell of his birthday. So he says, I have not even met one particular slave who knows exactly when his birthday falls. If I ask you, if you ask me, we will tell, isn't it, when our birthdays are. But he says, I have not met even one slave who knows when his birthday is. Why he doesn't know? That we will know later. They seldom come nearer to it than planting time, harvest time, cherry time, springtime or fall time. What is this? What is planting time, harvest time, cherry time, springtime, fall time? Planting, initially when you sow. Harvesting is your harvest time, cherries are cherries blossoming. We don't have all these seasons here in India. If you go to foreign countries, spring season and other seasons, winter season, it's coming automatically. Okay, fall time. Autumn, spring, all these things coming together. So, we don't even see, these come, seldom is rarely. These seasons come, these seasons go, but our birthdays are never known, or we don't have any information that is there. Any season comes and goes, we are still kept ignorant, we are still kept in ignorance. A want of information concerning my own was a source of unhappiness to me even during childhood. So he wanted to know, very badly wanted to know when his birthday was, and that was a source of his unhappiness. He felt very unhappy that he didn't know when his birthday was, even during childhood. He was very, see, these white people came and told, today is my birthday, tomorrow is yours, or whatever. But these black slaves, they couldn't even tell, oh, my birthday falls on this month, or my birthday falls on this date of this month. No, they couldn't tell at all because they didn't know, absolutely didn't know what is happening. Okay. The white children could tell of their ages. See, this is what I told you. The white children easily could tell, I am 16, I am 17, I am 20, whatever. I could not tell why I ought to be deprived of the same privilege. He says, I don't know why I should be deprived of that privilege of knowing my age or knowing my birthday. Why are we not given that chance of knowing our birth dates? I was not allowed to make any inquiries of my master concerning it. So they couldn't even ask their masters when they were born. He deemed all such inquiries on the part of a slave improper and impertinent and evidence of restless spirit. So even if they went in to ask their masters, can you tell me when my birthday is, or when was I born? The master considered that was a very improper or a negative question to ask, not a right question. Okay, not a right question to ask, and that made me something like very restless. Now see, restless meaning, if I have to associate restless to you, I can tell it like this. You want something and you don't get it. Anybody says just no on your face. Don't you have that feeling, I want it, somehow I want it. That's feeling of restlessness, you are not stable in your thoughts. Or your entire mind is running, I want it, somehow I want it, and I will get it. Here what's his restless spirit about? His restless spirit is about not knowing his birthday. When the white children could tell, and when the masters considered it to be improper, masters considered it not the right statement to ask, or the not right question to ask, his spirit went very restless, very unstable at that moment. The nearest estimate I can give makes me now between 27 and 28 years of age. So he says, I'm just assuming something, I can be 27 or 28 now, that's my assumption or an estimate that I have put. I come to this from hearing my master say, sometime during 1835, I was about 17 years old. So he has just calculated and put an estimate, because once he heard his master during 1835 saying that Frederick Douglass was of 17 years. So he put an estimate, he calculated an age, and he says, now I may be 27 or 28, because I remember my master in 1835 somewhere saying that I was of 17 years old. My mother was named Harriet Bailey. Okay, this is also important. My mother was named Harriet Bailey. She was the daughter of Isaac and Betsy Bailey, both colored and quite dark. So mark this paragraph, that's important. Mother's name was Harriet Bailey. Grandparents were Isaac and Betsy Bailey. Harriet Bailey was the daughter of these two. Then they were both colored people and quite dark. Not very dark, fine color, quite dark, not very fair or see. Our skin tones vary, isn't it? Now our Indian skin is brown skin, but we do have a very darkish complexion also. Some are very fair, some are somewhere in average, some are very dark. So that's a complexion of the skin, you cannot do anything with it. My mother was of a darker complexion than either my grandmother or grandfather. So who is that? Isaac and Betsy Bailey They were not too dark, quite dark, slightly dark, okay. But his mother, Harriet Bailey, was more darker than these parents or his grandparents. My father was a white man. Now see can you see the contradiction there? Frederick Douglass' father was a white man, mother was a black woman, grandparents were black, okay. How his father became white, or how did the mother meet a white man, we'll see. He was admitted to be such by all I ever heard speak of my parentage. So everybody told that my father is a white man, and I have heard of my parentage, of how my parents looked at me, okay. Identity of having my parents. Who are my parents? How am I related to them? I have heard people saying that he was a white man, may have been a white man. So everybody has admitted it, I also admit it for myself. By all I have ever heard speak of my parentage, that is, all those people who have spoken about my parents, that's what I also admit along. The opinion was also whispered that my master was my father, but of the correctness of this opinion I know nothing. The means of knowing was withheld from me. Now what is another thing that he has heard? His master, who is there now, is his own father. That's what he has heard. Okay? But he says, I'm not yet sure of the opinion. People's opinion was like that his master is his father, but he says, I am not sure of that opinion. I don't know whether that opinion is truly true or false. I know nothing. The means of knowing was withheld from me. So he says, I don't know anything. So much of information he has given from what he has heard of people. He is not yet sure. He says, I know nothing now, but because, why I know nothing is because all that information that I could get from people, or all that information that I could know for myself, was kept away from me. I was withheld from it. I didn't know about it. Your hall ticket is withheld. Your results are withheld. What is that? It's not given to you. So what is not given to Douglass here? Information. My mother and I were separated when I was but an infant, before I knew her as my mother. So when he was a very small baby, he was being separated from his mother even before he got that touch of his mother. And see, the baby takes time to realize. Baby can make out, isn't it, who the mother is, who is not the mother of the baby, with the touch, because the baby is involved with the touch of the mother. But for the baby takes stages to grow. So as the baby grows into stages, it realizes properly its mother's features, how the mother looks and everything. But initially it's because of the touch that it realizes it's my mother. Before that, till it comes and realizes exactly, this is how my mother looks, this is how she is. Douglass was taken away from his mother. He was a very small infant. Before I knew her as my mother, that's what. He is very small. It is a common custom in the part of Maryland from which I ran away to part children from their mothers at a very early age. So that's a custom, it's a tradition to separate the mother and the baby at a very early age. And he says, I ran away from Maryland, and that in the part of Maryland from which I ran away, from where he ran away, that's a custom there, to separate their children from their mothers, not allow them to foster that or not allow them to get that relationship, not allow them to get that love. Frequently, before the child has reached its 12th month, its mother is taken from it and hired out on some farm a considerable distance off, and the child is placed under the care of an old woman too old for field labor. So even before the baby is the 12th month, that's even within a year. Even baby can become 12 months, 1 year. The baby is taken off from the mother, and once the baby is taken up from the mother, where is the mother sent? The mother is sent into work, where she is sent up to a very distant place, okay, considerably distant place to work. And where is the child given? The child is given in the hands of an old woman who is not able to work now as a slave like that, but is given the responsibility of looking after children. Looking after these children, who is too old for care of an old woman, too old for field labor. She cannot do anything outside, she cannot do any work on the fields, so she is given some bare minimum wages and given the responsibility of taking care of the children of these slaves. So Douglass was one among them, and it is the custom like that to take away children even before they reach 1 year from their mother, and their mother is sent to some considerable distant place to work there, and the child is given in the caretaker by a caretaker is there, and she is an old woman who is not able to work in the fields or in outside heavy kind of work that is there. So she is given a little minimum expense or minimum wages that are there, which she can have for herself to take care of the babies of the slaves. For what this separation is done, I do not know, unless it to be to hinder the development of the child's affection towards his mother, and to blunt and destroy the natural affection of the mother for the child. This is the inevitable result. Inevitable is unavoidable. So why this separation is done? He questions, why this separation is done? I really don't know. I don't know the reason exactly, but it stops the development of the child. The touch of the mother is very important. So it stops the development of the child's affection and love to the mother. The mother also needs the baby's touch. The baby also needs the mother's touch. So, and to destroy the natural affection of the mother for the child. So the mother also has affection for the child, isn't it? Child in turn needs affection from the mother. So, when they separate these children like these, what is lost? The basic human desire of touch is lost. Everybody needs to be touched, isn't it? You feel loved when you are touched. You feel more loved when you are touched by close people or your loved ones. Here, when the baby is not even a year old, it needs the touch of the mother. That affection is separated. That kind of a development is hindered. That kind of a development, there is a lack of development there when you separate the baby from the mother. This is the unavoidable result. That is, baby lacks affection. The mother also has no option for it. The mother cannot be doing anything. What else can it do? Just go because they are black people, just go because they are slaves. Alright, I would like to stop at this, students. A little more to finish, that we will do it in the coming class. Alright, I want you to read this much, watch the movie 2014 Selma, read up on Black Lives People, okay, then on Black Lives of the people who are blacks and how they have suffered at that time. I want you to read about Rosa Parks, okay, Montgomery bus in Alabama, what was there, Martin Luther and other things, okay, his speech, I Have a Dream. This much you must do before we begin the next part or before we begin something. Movie you can watch it a little later, but at least read some information, or on Emancipation Proclamation Act also, okay, or small video clips on YouTube. You can have a brief picture of what we are actually studying. A little bit of Frederick Douglass also if you would like to, okay, but after you have done all this, read what's there in the text. Reading is very important. English textbook has very rich words which you can use and take it for a very long time. Alright, thank you very much, students, for listening. I shall meet you in the next class.